Everyone. A very warm welcome to you all. Many familiar faces and maybe some new folks joining us. If you are new, love to hear from you, and maybe just put a word in the chat, introducing yourself, and we'll welcome you and welcome everyone. This is our Sunday morning meditation class, sponsored by the Insight Meditation Community Washington, IMCW, and the Center for Mindful Living, which is a kind of part of IMCW. Was located in Tenleytown for over a decade, but when with COVID, we had to give up the space, but we're still very, very alive, perhaps more alive than ever, as a community, meeting online and in person, but without having a physical space anymore. So we do have retreats, and we do have get-togethers and various things. So on behalf of IMCW and the Center for Mindful Living, warm welcome to you. I'm Hugh Byrne. I was the one teacher of the class. We've been expanding it in recent times. I typically teach the first and the third Sunday of the month. This month it changed because I was traveling, but typically that. And then we have Regina teaches the fourth Sunday, and we have a guest teacher typically on the second Sunday. And I've been teaching with IMCW for over 20 years, and actually teaching a class on Sunday morning since 2000. So it's my regular thing of way to spend Sunday mornings. I think probably the majority of you are either recording the tennis, or you may not be tennis fans. But anyway, that's going on right now. It looks like a very good game from what I've seen. Just looking in the chat here. Thank you, Achala Pat. You like the purple shirt. Very nice. I'm very fond of this color too. Agatha, new and joining from Leesburg, Virginia. Warm welcome to you. Very warm welcome. Debbie Sue, back from China. Wonderful. This sounds like a wonderful journey. And Timothy, who we chatted with a little bit earlier, joining us from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So welcome to you, and welcome to, excuse me, anyone who's joining us for the first time, and all those coming back. Good to see you, Terry and Jackie and everyone. So just a little bit on the format of the class. We typically normally begin with a meditation, help us kind of arrive and settle. So normally about 20-minute guided meditation. A nice opportunity to come back, come into awareness of our experience. As we know, we spend a lot of our time kind of elsewhere in our heads and in the future and in the past, and caught up in stuff and not aware, or not often aware, often not aware of our direct experience. So taking the time to formally practice, taking the time to meditate, if possible every day, creates the conditions where we are, as Thich Nhat Hanh uses the expression, he says, keeping our appointment with life. Keeping our appointment with life. I love that kind of expression. Often we're AWOL for our appointment, and so just to be able to come back and having a practice to do that. So I'm going to be focusing today on what can support us in really being present, and how, taking just moments to come back, in the midst of our day, as well as formal practice of meditation, but taking time just to check back with ourselves, even on either on a regular basis or or just whenever it comes. Oh, where am I now? I'm on my way somewhere. I'm in my head. I'm thinking of all the things I've got to do, or I'm checking things off my to-do list, but not really here. So just that opportunity to keep coming back. So as I'm speaking, you might just check in with, what are you noticing right now? What are you aware of? Coming back to the body, coming back to the breath, coming back to whatever we're feeling right now, whatever we're experiencing. This moment, meeting it with kindness, with acceptance, with an attitude of non-judging, not evaluating what we're experiencing. Oh, I'm experiencing, I shouldn't be having this. I shouldn't be feeling angry. Oh, I shouldn't be feeling judgmental. But rather just say, oh, okay, noticing impatience or anger or sadness. Okay, this is what's here right now. So we'll move into the meditation. I invite you to just come into a comfortable, relaxed posture. So, most of us, it'll be sitting down, but that's not the only posture. In Buddhist meditation, we can, there's 4 traditional postures, 4 classical postures. The most common being the sitting posture, also standing meditation, walking meditation, and reclining, lying down, classical postures. So for most of us, we'll be sitting. So letting your awareness come into the body, sitting with your back straight, inviting the shoulders to relax. You might let your eyes close and allow your attention to come inward. Consciously let the attention drop out of the thinking mode where we spend so much of our time. Just come down into the body, feeling the contact of your body with the chair or the cushion, whatever you're sitting on right now. Your feet perhaps touching the floor. Your hands in contact with each other or with your lap or your knees or your thighs. You're just feeling the sensations of the body, if you can, from the inside. Maybe feeling the hands. Might be some tingling or pulsing, some pressure or some hardness or softness, warmth. You could do a brief scan of your body and see if there's any area that you might be holding some tension that you could relax a little bit more. You might begin with the head and the face. A lot of tension can build up around the eyes and around the brain, the forehead. Just inviting that area to relax. Coming down to the shoulders. Imagine you're putting down something heavy you're carrying. Just relaxing the shoulders. Coming down to the torso, the belly, the chest. Inviting that area to relax. Letting your breath come into a relaxed, open belly. And moving the attention down the body, down the legs, down to the feet. Inviting a quality of ease to your experience. You might find it helpful to take a few longer, deeper breaths as a way of helping you settle and arrive. Nice, long, deep in-breath, filling the chest and filling the lungs, and releasing, letting go on the out-breath. Imagine you're letting go of anything, any tension, any tightness you might be holding. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. Whenever you're ready, just letting the breath settle into its natural rhythm. In breath and out breath. You might find it helpful to invite a smile to the face, to the corners of the eyes and the mouth. Maybe thinking of someone or something that makes you feel happy or joyful. Just a smile sends a message to our brain and to our nervous system that we can be at ease, we can relax. And the smile can be an expression of how we are wanting to meet our experience, whatever's coming up. See if you can meet it with a welcoming attitude, with a smile. This moment, this feeling. Just letting yourself be here, putting aside things you might need to do later or things that happened earlier. And just let yourself be here. Give yourself the gift of this time to be present with yourself and your experience. And also here in community or with others. You might invite an attitude of acceptance to whatever is present for you right now. Whatever you're experiencing in the body and in the heart, in the mind? Can you meet it with an attitude of acceptance, saying yes to whatever is here right now? Whatever bodily feelings you're aware of, hardness or softness, warmth, coolness, tightness, pressure, whatever's here. See if you can meet your experience with acceptance. This moment doesn't need to be any different than it is. Just inviting a wholehearted acceptance of your experience. Meeting what's present with kindness and without judgment. And if it's helpful, you can let the breath be an anchor for your awareness, just a place where you rest your attention. And when the mind goes off, that you can come back to. In breath and out breath. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. Just letting your attention rest in the experience of body breathing. And when the mind moves into the future or the past or something that seems attractive for a time. When you become aware of that, just gently and kindly let the attention come back to the breath, come back to the body, come back to this moment, out of the stories, out of the mind's creations. And just come back here, here. Each time we notice we're somewhere else and come back, we're strengthening our capacity to live more fully in the present, to be here for our life, to keep our appointment with life. It's not a problem when the mind has a mind of its own, gets pulled into things that are going on in life, problems to solve, things to do. Difficulties we might be experiencing. Just to notice when we're caught up, maybe notice the kind of thinking that we're pulled into. And with kindness, it's coming back, in breath and out breath. We'll finish with this poem, In Blackwater Woods by Mary Oliver. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this, the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. So take your time coming back to the group, and welcome those who joined us during the meditation. Excuse me. Nadia says, do you mind speaking a bit louder? I will. Maybe I got a little quiet during the meditation, so I apologize if that was the case. So welcome everyone, welcome back, and welcome those joining us. I'm going to talk some now about really making presence, being present for our experience, present for our lives, making it really the more and more our default. I'd begin with a reminder of the Buddha's teachings of awakening. We can say all of the Buddha's teachings really are about freeing ourselves from suffering, of finding a way to untangle ourselves from the tangles we get caught up in, from the confusion, from the craving, from the aversion, the annoyances, the complaints, the ways in which life is not being the way we want it to be. And we're struggling with that, and we're not liking that, and we're wanting it to be different. And that's the experience of dukkha, of unsatisfactoriness. Dukkha in the Pali language of the first written teachings of the Buddha in Pali, dukkha. That experience of, the best translation I know of it is normally translated as suffering, but suffering is such a kind of blanket word. It isn't necessarily the best one, even though it's the most common one. I find unsatisfactoriness, even though it's a clunky word, it probably captures it best. Things they're not satisfactory. No, I don't like this. I don't want this. I want things to be different. I want this person to be different. I want them to be not doing what they're doing. I'm wanting them to agree with me rather than disagree with me. All of that, and it's just this is very much part of our lived experience, that we experience suffering, but what. The wonderful thing, and this is the Buddha's central teachings, that I talk about quite a lot, of the Four Noble Truths. in a way, again, all of the Buddhist teachings come back to the Four Noble Truths. They come back because they're about how do we free ourselves from suffering? How do we live free from suffering in this very, very life? What the teachings point to is that the suffering is, in fact, an optional add-on to our experience. We don't actually have to suffer. We do have things difficult, like sickness, aging, loss, dying. Ultimately, those are, for most of us, are not easy things to experience, along with all the other kind of being too hot or too cold or too this or too that. They're not easy to deal with. But, what the teachings point to is if we can change our relationship to that experience, we don't have to suffer on account of these things. They may still be painful. It may be unpleasant, difficult to be sick, but we don't have to add to that experience. We don't have to add suffering to, if you like, to the pain. You're probably familiar with that expression that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. The pain is like, this is what comes with life. You bang your arm on something, ouch, that's going to be pain. But it's very different if you say, ouch, oh yeah, this is sore, oh, okay. Yeah. Or you say, ouch, what a stupid person I am. My life is such a mess. I'm always banging my, and we create all these stories about things. That's the suffering part. The ouch is the ouch of life. Life is, does have its share of ouches, but the suffering is optional. There's a wonderful word in the Pali language. Some of you may be familiar with it. Called papancha, P-A-P-A-N-C-A. I'll write it in there, P-A-P-A-N-C-A. And normally it's translated, I think the very good translation of it is mental proliferation. Yeah. Papancha, mental proliferation. You think of, the example I gave, some simple thing happening that's painful, but then the mind creates all of these things, all of these stories that are, much bigger than the actual experience, much more add-on stuff, There's a very good example of papancha, one of the best examples of anyone who's been on retreat. There's an experience that probably most people have at some time if you do quite a few retreats, is that you see somebody on the retreat that you find somewhat attractive, and the mind has a lot of space to kind of big fields to wander around in, right? It isn't always disciplined, and it's very easy for that. Oh yeah, person. Oh, they're really nice. I wonder if they'd like more. Earlier in the cycle of life rather than later or whatever, but it's still the same kind of overall syndrome of papancha. But how we can, create a scenario, and maybe we've done this of, this person of, if you're in a position to maybe, have a relationship, then the mind creates a relationship, and and maybe you get married and you have children, whatever, and the mind is doing all this proliferation, and it's like complete fabrication, obviously, that you haven't said a word to the person. That's the interesting thing about being on retreat, in silence, there hasn't been any communication, but the mind can create all these scenarios. It even has a term, it's known as the Vipassana romance. Vipassana romance. That is kind of the mental fabrications that the mind can create, particularly in that area. We can do it in many different areas, but that's just one scenario of craving, of like, oh, I'm wanting this person, and then creating a story, and maybe, involving, marriage, children, even divorce, whatever. These are all examples of papancha, and so the coming back to the teachings, the suffering is the suffering is optional. What we speak about it often as the second arrow. It's the first arrow is the pain. The second one is like, who did this to me? Why did they do it? I'm going to do, all of the add-ons to the experience. The second arrow, the third arrow, we judge ourselves for being judgmental or getting angry or whatever. Just kind of add things on. So a key really is to see how we're creating suffering for ourselves. That this is really optional, that there's something that we're doing or sometimes not doing that is creating or perpetuating our suffering. Suffering isn't just a thing, suffering is a relationship. And it's an unskillful relationship with our experience. We're leaning into the future, craving or wanting, or we're caught up in aversion, creating separation and experiencing the unpleasantness of that because we're hooked on something. And I've talked a lot in recent months and maybe recent years about, the different kind of metaphors for this, of being tangled, being spoken about Pemberton's, the Tibetan term of Shenpa, being hooked, that being caught on a hook. So if we can see the way that we're engaged with our experience that is actually causing us suffering, then the possibility exists for letting go. Without being able to see it, we can't really change our behavior. We have to see, oh, this is what I'm doing. I'm turning this person, this family member or this politician who I don't like, I'm turning them into another. They're the bad person. I don't like them. I hate them. They're always this, they're always that. And then seeing that actually is creating suffering for ourselves and that we have the possibility of letting go. And that's really the heart of the Four Noble Truths, is that once we see that we're creating our suffering, or that that our relationship is really causing suffering, then the potential exists for letting go. So that letting go is the third noble truth, that we can let go and we can experience freedom, a little freedom or a lot of freedom or complete freedom, as Ajahn Chah speaks about it, as our suffering, our struggle with the world will be at an end, he says, if we can let go. And then there's a path that the Buddha kind of laid out to the end of suffering, a path of training. And as I've been speaking about in recent sessions, I talked a couple of sessions ago, gave a lot of focus to Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And the present moment, what I was emphasizing there was that the present moment really is the doorway to freedom. That's the kind of the way in, is through how we are relating to this moment. If we relate wisely and kindly and skillfully with this moment, then that's the path really to freedom, to ending suffering in our lives. But if we're in, and when we're in, a relationship of conflict with the present moment, we're not here, we're not conscious, we're not present, then we tend to suffer. When we're caught up in complaining about how things, when we're doing that, we're not accepting the present moment. We're like, no, this isn't okay. This person is always like this and they shouldn't be like this, or this situation is like this and it shouldn't be like this. And we suffer. We're in an unskillful relationship with the present moment, with our experience. So what we're cultivating is the capacity more and more to say yes to our experience, to say yes, to come into alignment with our experience just as it is. As Eckhart Tolle says, we can always cope with the present moment. We can never cope with what is a mind creation. We can't cope with the future, So the heart of our practice is to come into a wise relationship with our experience, accepting what is here right now. And that doesn't mean we can't change things. We can, it can be wise and skillful to make change where it's appropriate to do so and where it's beneficial to do so. But even when we make change, it's important that we do that from a place of acceptance of what is, not from a place of resistance to what is. So much of the time, some of these things I've spoken about quite a bit before, but we spend much of our time unconscious of our experience, leaning into the future, ruminating on the past, lost in these mental narratives, lost in papancha, in distraction or worrying or planning, or caught up in difficult mind states. And when we do, we suffer. We're, as I said, missing our appointment with life. So that the patterns, the habits that take us away from our experience here and now tend to be quite powerful. For most of us, they've been patterns and habits that have been with us perhaps for years, perhaps for decades, perhaps for most of our life. We've developed ways of being in the world that, seem wise and helpful so that we can take care of ourselves, but often are actually quite counterproductive. We might have had experiences when we were young where, quote, bad things happen to us, and we might think, the world is an unsafe place, so I need to treat everybody as potentially out to get me or cause me harm. And if I create my life around that, it's likely to be filled with suffering. I'm going to not be able to, engage, open my heart to people. I'll find that very difficult, for example, or I'm going to be untrusting of people, and so those. And obviously there's many different forms these our conditioning can take and our habits can take. So much of our practice is to really shine the light of awareness on how we're acting, how we're responding, how we're speaking, and examine and whether what we're doing is in fact leading us towards well-being, to happiness, or is actually kind of getting us more and more caught up in suffering. Because of the strength of our conditioning and the strength of our habits, we need to find ways to, as I think I mentioned in the meditation, make being present more of our default. The way Eckhart Tolle speaks about it as, we make rather than making being present more of an occasional thing that we do, we come back to our body, we come back to awareness. Right now, what am I aware of? Being here. We tend to, being present is often, a more of an occasional thing, even if we have a regular practice. We spend so much of our time caught up in worrying, caught up in aversion, caught up in wanting things we don't have, caught up in confusion. So what we really need to do is to cultivate, we need to make more and more our default being present. So what I've been exploring in my own practice, and maybe invite us to explore today, is a ways really of making being present more and more our default. Make presence our default rather than making unconsciousness and habitual behaviors our kind of default practice. And what I think I'd like to do is to just and invite us to do a practice which it'll take a few minutes now, but once you become familiar with this, it can be something that you can kind of slot into your day really at any time. Just pause even for a minute or so and just do this brief checking in with your experience. So just take a moment to, maybe come into just get comfortable. We don't need to kind of adopt so much a formal posture. But just, if you like, close your eyes, let your attention come inward. And bring your awareness to whatever bodily feelings are present right now. You just bring awareness to your body. You might notice there might be some tightness, maybe in the chest or the belly, or maybe around the head, some other area. Just notice what's present. There might be a feeling of hardness where you're touching your body touches the chair, or your feet touch the floor. Maybe there's warmth, where your clothes touch your body, or the air on your skin, or maybe coolness. And let your awareness come to your body and to the bodily feelings as a whole. See if you can say yes to whatever you're feeling, whatever you're experiencing right now. Just meeting this moment with kindness, with acceptance, without judgment. letting whatever feelings are here, whatever bodily sensations are here, letting them come, letting them be, letting them go. Now you might just shift your awareness from the body as a whole to your breathing. Our breathing is a good barometer of our overall well-being. You know, when we're stressed, the breath tends to be tighter and shorter. And when we're relaxed, deeper and longer. So just notice your breathing right now. Maybe just bringing awareness to your breathing. There may be a natural kind of deepening of the breath. Just however it is right now. Just bring your awareness to your breathing. Maybe it's a little tight. Or perhaps it's deeper, longer. Maybe it's a short breath. Maybe the breath is calming. Or maybe it's more tense. Just meeting your breathing as it is, meeting the breath as it is. Meeting it with kindness, with acceptance, without judgment. And if judgment comes up, see if you can meet that too with acceptance and with kindness. Saying yes to what's present right now. Letting the breath come and go. Now again, just letting your attention shift from the breath to any emotions or mind states that might be present, or mood that might be present. Now, this would include emotions like sadness or anger, fear, peace, joy, feeling of happiness. Just notice what's present. It might be a feeling of calm or peace. Maybe there's some tiredness or restlessness. Just bringing awareness to whatever of emotional flavor, tone is present right now, whatever mood or emotions or mind states. Just allowing whatever is here to be here, to come, to go. Meeting what's here with kindness and with acceptance. without judgment. And if there's any story about what you're feeling, I'm sad because of X or Y. See if you can let the story go and just stay with the direct experience. If there's sadness, where are you feeling? Some feelings around the heart or around the face. Just breathe into what's here, whatever feelings, emotions are present. So that everything can come and go. Letting them come, letting them go. Staying as close as you can to your direct experience, rather than concepts or elaborations, just what's here. And just finally, just shifting your awareness to any thoughts that come up. Just be aware of your thinking. Maybe a thought of planning comes up, what you're going to do later or during the week. Or thinking about the past. Or worrying. Or daydreaming. Just noticing the thoughts and letting them come and go without proliferation, without letting the thought become another thought and a story, then the creation of further narratives. Just seeing how we can just be aware and choose not to proliferate, just to notice the thought and let it go. Choosing not to get lost in them, to follow them, just to see them, let them go. So just as we brought awareness to these experiences of bodily feelings, breath, emotions, mind states, thoughts, saying yes to what's present. We're really coming into presence. We're opening to our experience just as it is, without add-ons, without moving into the future or the past. And we can do this, as we practice, just coming back. We'll get a lot of information if we pause in the midst of our life and just turn the attention inward and bring awareness to our body. We very likely experience some expression in the body of, worry or fear or annoyance or some mind state or emotion. will be present in the body. And if we can just let ourselves feel the feelings, let them come and go, can let go of the story, let go of the dukkha. Similarly with our breath, experiencing the breath as it is, experiencing the emotions and mind states without getting lost in them, without being caught in them. We can do this just for maybe a minute or so, to turn inward, open to our experience. Just being curious about whatever's present. Nothing that we're experiencing is wrong. Nothing's a mistake, or nothing needs to be pushed away. It can all be held in kindness, with acceptance. Letting, coming back. So just to finish off, I wanted to kind of emphasize again the importance of making it a habit to come back to the present, to keep our appointment with life. Because if we don't make it a habit, if we don't make it a practice, what will tend to be the default is the going into our habitual ways of being elsewhere, of being lost, of being caught up in suffering. So one of the things that I've been doing in my practice is I try and at least, maybe 5, sometimes 10 times a day, just consciously remember to pause, to come into awareness for about a minute, sometimes a minute and a half, and just be aware, what am I noticing? What's present right now? To step out of the, what can be the papancha of daily life, the proliferation, the being caught up in things, and just come back, okay, here now. And really what we're doing when we do that is we're making it being present more of our default. And that can become, it can become more and more our way of being in the world. It can have a really significant impact on our life, to be able to step out, to kind of shift the balance. Because for most of us, I think the balance is we're caught up in stuff. We're caught up in the, in the busyness and the all of the mental narratives about, what we need to, to be doing what we're doing for our work, for our families, for whatever other activities we're caught up in. So if we don't consciously make it a practice, we will tend to default to the old, the old kinds of suffering. However long we've practiced, it's the energy, the habit energy can be very powerful, pulling us back into doing things. We can have strong intentions to, I really want to put, I really want to give my attention to being present. But then, if we don't keep it going very easily, we just kind of find ourselves drawn back into old behaviors, old things that keep us kind of stuck in that dukkha, in that suffering. So making being present our default more and more. I was looking at some of the sharing in the chat. I'm glad this was helpful, Geraldine. No problem. If you need to leave, and anyone else. Jenna says, can you speak to the conundrum of being attached to proliferating as a means of attempting to control things? Yeah. I've noticed when I attempt to drop the meaning making, I'm left in a vast, open, unsettling groundlessness. And while I know Buddhists say this is a cause of celebration, it's sort of terrifying and overwhelming. So even though the suffering is harmful, the absence of it is actually also really unsettling. Yeah, it's a wonderful question, Jenna. And it really is true that that can be a disquieting place because we're not used to it. We're used. One of the reasons we stay in our suffering is because it's so familiar to us. It may not be very pleasant to us, but we know it. Oh yeah, I know this. It's like some comfortable overcoat we've worn for so long. So it can be hard. So I think the practice really that that's important to give attention to is to learn that it's okay to stay in that unsettledness. And one of the things I find helpful is the kind of the kind of titration, being able to kind of do it, stay as much as you can. And if it gets really difficult, just step away for a while, take a breath, come into the body, take a walk, check in with somebody, and then come back again so that we're building up that capacity to be able to really be with feelings that aren't necessarily pleasant or easy to be with. So building that capacity, and then in all of the things that I've been talking about are ways of really doing that, coming back, being familiar. Can I come back to these bodily feelings? The bodily feelings are so fundamental because our escape mechanisms are often to our ways of escaping escaping from unpleasant feelings, that tension in the body, and we need to do something. I've got to have something to eat or drink or something that takes me away from this unpleasant feeling. We're not necessarily doing that in a conscious way. Often we're doing it unconsciously. We want to move away from the unpleasant. So the more we can expand our capacity to that kind of willingness to be with the difficult, be with the unpleasant, expand our window of tolerance. You say it's a tall order to stay in the uncomfortable place. Small steps, small amounts at a time. I think that's one way of doing it that can be helpful. Thank you for that. I'm conscious of time and having time for some mindful movement. But let's pause here and we'll continue after the movement with some discussion and some sharing around this. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you, Emily. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hugh. And certainly one of my habits is to find my feet and just in meditation, just taking it slow, noticing my feet, and now inviting you to stand up if you haven't already, to enter into the space around you, noticing your environment, shifting weight onto one foot and then the other, and noticing the horizon line. What is there in your room? Now open up wide, embracing the space around you, lifting your arms up, lifting your rib cage. Exhale, soften, allowing your shoulders to drop down, the elbows to be soft, and then grasp your left wrist in your right hand, extending over to the right, just creating a C, shifting your left hip out, lengthening. You might take an inhale to lift up for a moment, and then exhale, see what that brings. And then inhale up, switch wrists, extending over to the left. You could even press on your left foot, for stability as you tilt, shifting over to the left, and inhale up. Float your arms down, roll your shoulders, a dance with your shoulders, and roll them the other way. Draw your arms up into cactus arms, keeping the elbows up. Drop your hands down. Inhale, rise, dropping down. Inhale, rise up, extend your arms out. Take a look at your left hand. The right palm stays down. And then inhale and shift over to see your right palm. The left palm goes around. And then back to the left, back to the right, to the left, and then to the right, and drop your arms down, roll your shoulders independent. And roll them the other way. Just to have a bit more fun with shoulders and crossing the meridians of the brain. Place your right wrist on top of your left. Your arms are extended. Grasp your hands. And then think about drawing a sideways figure 8, shifting and moving with all of your body as you draw that figure 8. And then come to center and draw it the other way. Come to center and switch wrists. Left wrist on top, clasp your hands and draw that figure 8. The symbol, the sideways figure 8, the symbol of infinity. Just shifting around. Now come to center and move it the other way. Sometimes this creates confusion, and it's good. Confusion is part of the brain. Being attentive. And then come to center. Release your arms down, shake it out. No one's watching, just being in the moment. Then draw your shoulders up around your ears. Exhale, soften. Bring your hands above your head and place your palms together. Exhale, draw them to your heart. And then turn your hands out to the group, wishing everyone here well. Then down to the earth, that which gives us so much abundance. And then come up into, as you exhale, whoosh, there we go. Too hard to explain. Then to the heart. Turn it out to the group. Down to the earth, and whoosh, and down to your heart, and take a bow. Thank you for your practice.
Thank you, Emily. I think what we'll do is that's wonderful as always. Thanks so much for leading us, Emily. Beautiful.